And we're back.
Hi, friends.
Hello.
Which way am I supposed to turn this?
All the way counterclockwise, I do believe.
To the big side?
Yeah.
Or to the small side,
Yeah.
rather?
Yeah, you got it right.
Okay. I hope you guys can hear me.
You should be able to. You're in the red whenever you talk, so
Like this!
yeah.
Hope you were listening on earbuds.
Okay.
Anyway. How's it going?
I hope you're doing well. As we continue spooky season, it's starting to get crunchy outside, but I think that's mostly because we haven't had rain.
Right. All things pumpkin spice have started hitting the shelves.
Blech.
It's the most wonderful time
Yeah.
of the year. All the caramel apple stuffs.
Daniel got me. He went to the store one day and he's like, "Ooh, I got something for you to make for us," and it was Dolly's like pumpkin spice cookies.
Ooh.
And I was like, "Thank you." And then a couple days later, I was like, "I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't like pumpkin spice stuff." He was like, "Well, we can still make them." I was like, "Yeah, I'll still make them for you if you want them." I was like, "I won't eat them, but I'll make them for you if you want them."
I have to go find that. Where did he find that?
I have no idea. I think Food Line, maybe. I have no idea.
You know that Dolly also has a big platter of mac and cheese.
Yeah. I
saw that the other day.
Yeah. I was like, it's probably not very good, but it is what it is. Because, I don't know, every time I eat one of the baked goods, I kind of get the raging shits.
Well, I'm just a little disappointed. Which I know it's not technically, it's just something that Dolly slapped her name on.
Yeah. It's
So-
not like she's slaving away in the factory herself.
Right.
Could you imagine?
I bet. Now listen, we all know that I love Dolly.
Oh, I love Dolly.
I want to be Dolly's best friend.
Yeah.
But like, she don't
Even though I
seem-
have a conspiracy about Dolly.
Oh, shit. We'll get there. She doesn't seem the type to cook very well.
I don't know. I bet she can, but I bet it's not like I mean, being able to cook and being able to bake are two different things.
This is true because I'm not the greatest at cooking, but like, God, I love to bake.
I'm not good at baking.
I'm
I'm also not very good at cooking either, but we're fed, so I can follow a recipe.
I love to bake, and I haven't found anything. Okay, so here's something for you.
Yeah.
I can make cookies galore. I can make cakes galore. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The most simple cookie there is chocolate chip. I cannot make it taste right. I can't do it.
I don't think that's the most simple cookie.
I don't know what
Peanut butter.
I don't.
That's literally like peanut butter and sugar.
Well, yes. And I can do a peanut butter. It was delightful. And like my snickerdoodles, oh man, best snickerdoodles you've ever had. But like my chocolate chip, for some reason, they don't taste right. And it's irritating. I don't know what I've done. I don't know how to fix it. I don't know. I don't know,
fam. Maybe you're not using enough vanilla or something.
Well, maybe I should contact Josh over at Butter and Brimstone.
Yeah, whose
Plug.
whose logo is the same font as our
Right.
logo.
So maybe he can help me out. I'll just buy them from him. His cookies are the shit.
They were really good.
His cupcakes are the shit.
I did have a cupcake because Maddie got mad at me because I was like, I'm taking one of these.
You've had his cupcakes at my Halloween party. Yeah. They're fantastic.
They are really, really good.
I love his cupcakes.
My Dolly conspiracy, if anybody wants to know.
Let's know.
I think her tits are rubber.
Oh, we
And,
talked
like,
about this.
I don't think, and I'm not saying like she's been open about plastic surgery.
Right.
And I'm sure, because I mean, if you look, because Danny was like, well, how is it look so seamless? And
This
I was
is
like,
stemming from the video that we saw of her in Post, right? Was it her in Post or her in Jelly?
I think it was her and Post Malone.
Okay.
But first of all, she's like in her 70s. Her chest is oddly smooth.
So what if she's got like what if her boobs are like not real, but real.
Well,
but then she's got like a thing over them.
See, that's what I'm wondering is I'm like, I wonder if like she has like a more natural set, and then to keep up the facade, she's wearing like something that goes up like to her neckline.
And that could be possibly hiding those tattoos that everybody says she has.
Or surgical scars or anything. Because that's why she wears gloves.
Yeah.
With fake nails on them.
Yeah.
It's really strange looking. But, I mean, that's what they're like, they look silicone.
Yeah.
And, like, her chest looks silicone.
I'm wondering, that might be the case. I don't know. Maybe she did have, like, a breast reduction because it was getting to be too much on her body.
Yeah.
And so, to keep up the facade, maybe that's what she's doing.
She's Dolly.
And she's known for the thing. She's known
got
for
big
the boobs.
tits. Because it just looks strange.
It really does. And like, you sent that to me, and I think my sister sent it to me, and we all said the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Maybe it was Josh. I don't know. You, me, and somebody else also said it.
But I literally think she's wearing like one of those like rubber,
like drag queens wear.
Yeah, like what drag queens wear. And I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with that. I don't care what Dolly's doing, because I think she looks great for her age.
Right.
I mean, and she's been open about all the surgeries and all this that she's had.
Listen, Dolly could do a lot of things, and
Dolly could come rob my house, and I would still love her.
My brain immediately went to smack a child, but I feel like I might get upset about that. But like, she could do a lot of things, and I would overlook it because to me, she is a saint.
She could cut me in line at like Buc-ee's or something, and I would be fine with it.
Not at Buc-ee's.
If anybody else did it, though, it's on site. I'm swinging on them.
Right. Oh, this was not working the way I wanted it to. I'm resituating. Sorry. So, lucky for you guys, we've caught up prior to this. So, you guys don't get 45 minutes of us telling what's been going on in our lives for the past 2 weeks. Yeah. And it's been a lot.
But I did go to the Green Day concert.
Oh, yeah.
And it was all that I ever imagined it was. I went by myself. This was my first solo concert on my 35th birthday.
I didn't even post anything on the podcast stuff for your birthday. I'm a terrible friend.
Whatever. I thought about doing it, and then I was like, is it weird if I do it myself?
You should have, because I should have done it, and I didn't think about it. Girl, listen.
It was a long day at work.
I'm a failure.
I didn't go to the I didn't see the Linda Lindas. I didn't see Rancid. I heard a little bit of Smashing Pumpkins from the parking lot, but I was in the merch line trying to get a concert poster. And then like halfway through the line, I made the realization of, I'm going to have to be in charge of my own merch that I buy. And, but I bought the coolest poster.
It really
is. Coolest poster. It's like holographic. It's so cool. Cause like I texted Danny and I was like, should I spend $50 and get the really nice, like Nashville specific poster? Or do I just spend $25 and get the tour poster? And he was like, $50. He was like, get the Nashville one. Well, then I get to my seat, which I'm almost certain I sat in the wrong seat the whole time, but nobody ever came and corrected me and asked me to move. So it was okay. And he Venmo'd me for half of the poster, half the amount of the poster. And I was like, why are you sending me money? And he was like, for the poster. And I was like, you didn't have to do that.
Treat yourself. It's your birthday.
But it was such a good show. It was such a good show. I keep thinking about it. And I'm like, because I've waited 20 years for that. Because like, I liked Green Day before American Idiot came out.
Yeah.
But once American Idiot came out, that's my album. That's my favorite. And like listening to it and getting to see it live and experience it with, like, I think Geodis Park holds like 30,000 people, but it definitely wasn't like, it was full and it was like almost completely sold out, but I don't know if they include the seats that they block off for like, that's behind the stage. So I would say about 20,000. It definitely felt like it, but like it was warm and it was my first time at Geodis Park. And what the funniest thing was when I get in, I go upstairs to my seat. It's a lot of stairs. We're leaving, and I fortunately get behind someone who walks downstairs the same way I do. So if you know me, you know I'm terrified of stairs. I'm afraid I'm going to fall. I'm afraid of heights. And open staircases, I do not like them. Like, if it's, like, enclosed, like with walls, I'm good. I'm still scared, but not as much so. So, but as a result, I go down one step at a time. So, like, you know.
Yeah.
And there's a lady in front of me who does the exact same thing. And I was like, thank God I can do it and not feel like I'm holding everybody up. She's holding everybody up.
You didn't wait until everybody left, or at least try to, like we did it?
No, because I was sitting in an aisle seat. But most of my aisle left before the show even ended. I guess they thought the show was going to end when American Idiot ended.
Yeah.
And it didn't. They played like 2 more songs, I think. But so they left like at the beginning of Homecoming, and then that was it.
Right.
So most of the aisle I was in and the row behind me left early. I should have waited though, but it was what it was. But like leaving, it was hilarious because it's an outdoor venue, right?
Yeah.
So there's a guy who is in like Wrangler blue jeans, cowboy boots, button down, long sleeve shirt, and a cowboy hat, right? And I think he's with his daughter. And I'm walking by them and he goes, Lord, it's just as hot out here as it is in there. He was like, it's hot outside. It's hotter. It's just as hot outside as it is inside. And the girl looks at him and goes, the outside is the inside. And he was like, well, I guess you're right.
What in the world?
Like, it was, but like trying to get out of there. Oh my God. If you ever go to Geodis Park for anything, it is a nightmare getting out. So, and like, I guess there's not a lot of parking. Parking is very limited. Like, it was like $40 for a parking pass.
Oh.
Yeah. So I just had Daniel drop me off. And then I ended up walking like probably like a mile to get to him because traffic was backed up so much. And because he told me to meet him at like, it's called like Santa's Bar or something that's over there. And I get there and I was like, you're not here. Where are you? He was like, I'm not there yet. So I was like, well, I don't think you're going to be able to get here. I was like, and these 2 dudes are about to fight because one dude was like ready to go home and his brother, they were clearly brothers. And the other dude was like really wanting to go to a bar and meet up with one of his friends. And his brother was like, he's not going to show up. He never shows up. And he's like very clearly on the verge of a panic attack. And his brother, who is very clearly drunk, is like, well, I don't know what your problem is, bro. And he's like getting in his face. And I was like, these 2 are going to fight. I was like, I've got to go. And there was an ironing board on the ground. It was a mess. Also, there are people that live there, like right there next to Geodis.
Yeah.
$20 you can park in their backyard. There was like 4 houses selling parking for their backyard.
Well, that's when we went to, oh my God, what is his name? That comedian that we went and saw.
Oh, Bert.
Why?
I don't, Kreischer?
Bert Kreischer. Okay. I kept wanting to say Tom Segura, but that's not him. That's his partner. Anyway, Bert Kreischer. When we went to see Bert Kreischer, it was in Clarksville, and it was at that new whatever there. F&M Bank.
Yeah.
Whatever. Like businesses and stuff close by were like charging for you to park in there.
I don't blame them.
We got like front seats.
Yeah.
Like I realized we had walked from the car all the way to the building. Mm-hmm. Realized that I forgot my phone.
Yeah. TJ
was like, just stand there. And he walked to the car and got it. And I could see him the whole way. Like it didn't take him no time. Yeah. But it was, that's what I would do. I'd be like,
get your bag. I mean, shit, if there was some sort of music venue nearby me with this backyard, hell yeah, you can park back there.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you though, the best venue that I have been to thus far is that amphitheater that we went to.
What, really?
Oh, man.
Geodis was really nice. It was nice. I didn't go to any concessions or anything. I just went straight into my seat because I was in the merch line for like an hour.
Yeah.
Which I was telling Danny, I was like, this is by far the slowest merch line I've ever been in. And I was like, and it's got nothing to do with the employees. So I'm gonna learn y'all a lesson, just a quick one. If you're in a merch line at a concert, okay? Don't try on the shirts while you're standing there, especially if there's only 2 people working in the merch booth.
Right.
Don't sit there and have to touch every single shirt. Don't have, know what you want when you get up there.
Right.
Because, one guy because one of the people working, stepped out of the trailer. And a guy in the line was like, y'all have got to speed this up. And he was like, the show is going to start in 45 minutes. They're planning on, and he was like, and we're barely at the front of the merch trailer. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, I mean, I'm inclined to agree. But once I got to the front of the merch trailer, I noticed what the holdup was. And it was families. And one dude was easily our age, if not older. And he had his parents there, telling him what size shirt he wore.
What?
Yes, helping him pick out a shirt. He had to try it on up there.
Well, hold on. So to be fair, Green Day is our era. That's our generation.
Yeah.
And
there were a lot of older people there.
Hold on. I like Green Day. Mm-hmm. You know that I do. Mm-hmm. Green Day was our shit back in the day.
Yeah.
But I'd venture to say that there are a lot of people that still religiously listen to Green Day that are our age or older and live in their parents' basement.
Oh, I'm so sure. But
and talk shit to kids on Fortnite.
Yeah, probably. But
I say that I don't do the same thing. I talk shit to kids on Fortnite. Of course,
I'm not going to assume if he had any sort of disability or anything like that. I don't know. But I just know that they bought one shirt and they were up there for over 5 minutes.
Oh, man.
And I'm like, that's what's slowing the line.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I was in line for Taylor Swift for an hour, but that line was 3 times longer than this line.
Right.
And I was like, and it was moving like this. It was fast.
It was Chick-fil-A drive-thru.
Yes. It was Chick-fil-A drive-thru versus
McDonald's.
Sonic.
Oh, Sonic for sure.
And it, like I said, it had nothing to do with the employees. They were doing their absolute best. There were 3 of them working in the trailer. 2 of them were taking what people wanted, and one guy was grabbing t-shirts for them. So I finally get up there, and one dude, he acted like he was in such a big hurry to get up there, and then he gets up there and he's got to have each poster. He's got to see 3 different shirts. He's got to buy every record they've got up there. He's got to do this and he's got to do that. And I'm like,
was it the same dude that was talking shit?
No, it was a different dude.
I started to say, I would have had to speak up and be like, if you wanted this to move a little bit faster, then why didn't you have it ready? That guy was
behind me in line.
Okay.
But I'm just I get up there and I was like, he's like, what can I get you? I said, I just want the Nashville poster. He goes, perfect. Puts it up there. I pay. Transaction over. I was up there for less than 2 minutes.
Right.
Because there was no reason for me to be up there longer.
Right.
But I just feel like that is some sort of, that is etiquette that people need to learn, I guess. Right. I don't know.
Etiquette is not a thing anymore.
No.
It's non-existent.
Some people were very clearly like me, and they were like, okay, I know what I want. Get it. Get out of here. Get out of the way. Let the next person come up here. But I was I got to the venue a little after 7. I did not get into my seat until almost 8:30. And I also, mind you, when I got to the venue, I had to pee. I did not pee while I was there.
Oh, nope.
Because I was trying to walk towards where my section, the stairwell for my section, and the line was I was like, why are there people just randomly standing in a line here? And the guy that was walking in front of me, he goes, is this the line for the bathroom? And one of the guys was like, unfortunately, yes. And I was like, I'll hold it. I ain't got to pee that
See,
bad.
I don't understand, man. Like, even every concert I've ever been to, I've never had to wait that long for a bathroom. Like,
No.
that's crazy.
So I don't know what their bathroom situation was like either, but I was like, We got to the Waffle House though after the fact. We came back to town and went to Waffle House, and I was like, you pick where we're sitting. I'm about to piss myself.
Right.
I was like, literally walking in there going, don't piss yourself, girl.
Also, just from you listeners, I want to know if every Sonic is slow and ever get your stuff right or ever has everything that you want.
The past 3 I've been to have been like that. Because, the one me and Gemma went to was in Bellevue.
Yeah.
And it was so slow.
I need to know. This is just, I just need to know if Sonic is starting to go downhill everywhere.
Which is crazy because they all look a lot nicer.
Yeah.
They've put all this money into like updating them, but I don't think they're like, maybe they're just not paying well. And people don't want to work there. Or it's just piss poor management probably.
Well,
I don't know. But
there's that.
I know our local ones are not that great. One of them got shot up.
By shot up, she means kid.
Some kid was screwing around and shot off his own finger or something. And like almost shot one of the car hops.
It's not funny. It's not. But it's funny.
I saw it on a Facebook post.
I did too.
Anybody else hear about Sonic getting shot up? What?
Especially in the part of town that it's in, because that's not a bad area.
No. And I even said, because it was like, they said, it accidentally went off like 10 times.
How?
And I was like, how?
In 2 ways. Also, I said something about talking shit to kids on Fortnite. So the other night, I get on there. I play solo a lot. All the time, really.
Yeah.
I have joined a couple groups like on Facebook to try and find other people to play with. Because I'm like, I like when I play with TJ. Or like maybe, some of his cousins will be on and we'll all play together. And that's a good time. But like, maybe it'll be fun to play with other people. And I've done it once or twice. And I'm awkward. And so I don't have a great time with it. So I'd rather just play by myself. And, I'm okay that way. But if so like the main game, like Zero Build Battle Royale or whatever, I'll play that solo. But if I go play this other section of it, which is called Reloads, it's basically the same thing, smaller map.
Yeah.
I'd rather play that with a team. So I do play with randoms. And like, I never turn my mic on. Hardly ever. So one night, not too long ago, I get on there. And it's always like little kids, okay?
Yeah.
Well, I get on there and there's 4 of us on this team. And I hear this kid say, like, you can see on your team who's got a mic and who doesn't.
Right.
But like, no one ever turns it on. Well, this kid goes, has anybody got a mic? All of us have the icon. Nobody speaks up. And the kid's like, hello? Does anybody have a mic? Hello? Fine then. Fuck you guys.
You said it.
Oh, man. Anyway. But yeah, I was cracking up. And then there was one, I can't remember what this kid's name was cracking me up. And I can't remember what it was now. I don't know. I'll think of it later and I'll tell you. Anyway, do we have any other stuff to catch up on?
No, I don't think so. I tried to buy Chapel Roan tickets, but didn't get any.
Well,
so I went shopping today instead.
We put out our Halloween decorations. Our house is mostly decorated. There's stuff that's supposed to come in tomorrow that we've ordered, and then we still have to go get all the stuff that we get from Mom and Dad's house. And then that'll go up. The inside's decorated. All my little mini skeletons are up. We have added, TJ bought a skeleton elephant. It's real cute. His name is Albert. and then a little, just like a person. It's a person skeleton, but it's like a kid size, like a smaller one. I don't know. It's little. I don't want to say it's a kid skeleton because that's grim, but
right.
It's a tiny one.
Yeah.
It's so cute. And I haven't named him, but we've named all the other ones. Oh, and he got a snake yesterday, a snake skeleton. It's cute. Its name is Richard.
Nice.
I don't know why, but that's what we named him. But yeah, that was a good time. I got to hang out with my favorite nephew today. Yeah, I said it. My favorite nephew, and it's a dog.
I was about to say, you have a favorite nephew?
I do. He's a Cane Corso pup.
He's a cutie.
He's almost 2. Well, I say that. He's got a couple months, but
it's Isaiah's best friend.
It's my favorite nephew. He doesn't sass me. The worst thing he does is drool on me. But he does love me. I'd have another favorite nephew if he would bring me Dutch Bros from time to time when he comes home from school. Because he doesn't have to drive far to get to one of those on his way home.
Look, we still ended up bullshitting for 30 minutes.
What would it be if we didn't?
That's true. Well, that's true. You can always anticipate that, like, the first, 30 minutes of the first episode that we record in a batch are going to be us shooting the shit. So.
True.
Well, what are we doing tonight?
We're going to talk about horror movies that are based off of true stories.
Nice. I'm really excited about this one. I'll start us off with a little quote from Alfred Hitchcock, Sir Alfred Hitchcock, I do believe. A glimpse into the world proves that horror is nothing other than reality. That's a bit.
Yeah.
And that's all I'm going to say about that.
Okay. That's all I got to say about that.
Are you making fun of me?
A little bit. It's okay.
Being rude.
Never.
Well, I'm going to start us off with our first one. So, located in a Long Island suburb of Amityville, New York, there is a large 3-story Dutch colonial-style home at 112 Ocean Avenue. When I wrote this episode, I then got that song, Ocean Avenue, stuck in my head.
I don't think I know what you're talking about.
There's a place on Ocean Avenue where I sit in the sun and talk to you.
Wow. Who sings
We were
that?
both 16 and it felt so right. Sleeping all day, staying up all night. You're welcome.
Oh.
Anyway, this home was first built in 1927 and has gone through several renovations and sales since it was first built, including an address change to 108 Ocean Avenue to deter tourists from trying to find it, which it's not moved. So the lore of the home says that it was built on top of a shinnecock. If I'm saying that wrong, somebody please correct me. But it is a burial ground. And one of its previous owners, John Ketchum, was supposedly a Satan worshiper, neither of which has been backed up by any evidence and is being chalked up to one of the many fabricated stories about the property from the book The Amityville Horror by Jay Anson. The movie Amityville Horror focuses on the hauntings and dark spirits. Amara has a Q-tip. And dark spirits of the home, but the actual horror was what occurred in the home on the night of November 13th, 1974, when 23-year-old Ronald Joseph DeFeo Jr. got up in the middle of the night and shot his parents and 4 siblings, Dawn, 18, Allison, 13, Mark, 12, and John, 9. After this, he ran to a local bar and, according to the trial transcript, said, "You got to help me. I think my mother and father are shot." He initially blamed the murders on a mob hitman, but following intense questioning and the alleged hitman having a credible alibi, he admitted to committing the murders and cleaning up any evidence that implicated him. DeFeo Jr. was tried and pled insanity. He was sentenced to 6 counts of 25 years to life, and he died in prison in 2021. Following the murders of the DeFeo family, the home remained vacant until it was put on the market 1 year later. In December of 1975, George and Kathleen Lutz purchased the home for $80,000, which was well under market value due to the high-profile murder case. The couple moved their blended family into the home just before Christmas of 1975, with George asking a Catholic priest, Father Ralph J. Pecoraro, to come bless the home, which he did. In Anson's book, he recounts a tape-recorded remembrance where they said that Father Ralph had called on Christmas Eve to tell them that he heard a voice saying for him to get out during the blessing, and that the family should stay out of the second-floor bedroom where the DeFeo parents had stayed. After that moment, there was allegedly a lot of incidents that occurred in the home that were so frightening that the Lutz family had to escape the home on January 14th, 1976. They sent a mover to the home to pack their belongings and put the house back on the market. It was then purchased by James and Barbara Cromartie, who lived there for 10 years and reported no paranormal activity. When Anson's book was released in September of 1977, it made the legend of the Amityville house run wild, and 1 year after, director Stuart Rosenberg's adaptation became a modern classic horror film. The true crime origins of this story gave it some credibility in the eyes of the public, but by 1979 there were already a number of discrepancies being reported about the authenticity of not only the story the Lutzes told about their supernatural experiences, but also the blessing that Father Ralph had supposedly performed. The Cromarties refuted many of the claims about the home when they purchased it, including the book's account of greenish-black slime and a hidden red room, which ended up just being a normal closet.
Okay.
There were also some independent investigators who were able to prove that the cloven hoof prints that were allegedly found in the snow would be impossible because there was no snow during the time that the Lutzes lived in the home. That's how you can tell Amara's got the zoomies, as she goes and runs into the washing machine.
Does she parkour off of it?
I think so. I don't know what she does, but you can hear it.
Yeah.
One of the most damning pieces of evidence was a lawsuit regarding the ownership of the story of the house, and Ron DeFeo's defense attorney, William Weber, admitting that the events were entirely made up by himself and the Lutzes. Over the following years, though, the Lutzes and their children would maintain that the details they disclosed that made them flee the home were in fact true. The house has been sold as recently as 2016, and none of the subsequent owners have complained of any hauntings, evil possessions, or anything else even remotely paranormal. As you can imagine, Ed and Lorraine Warren were among the first investigators to go to the Amityville home, and of course they claimed it was haunted. This case was featured in the second Conjuring film that is based on cases investigated by the Warrens. 5 months after the Lutz family moved out, Ed and Lorraine swooped in to conduct an investigation, and according to their case files, Ed was physically pushed to the ground. Good, I put in quotations, or parentheses around that.
We'll come back to them in a little bit, too.
And Lorraine felt a deep sense of something demonic in the home, and I put in parentheses, probably themselves, and she was overcome with visions of the DeFeo family bodies laying on the floor. They also captured a photo of an alleged demon child standing in the basement of the home. And when interviewed in 2005 about the Amityville home, Lorraine, a supposed psychic, said that going in, it was evil. It's the personification of evil. I personally think that she just doesn't know what personification or evil mean, but that's just my opinion.
We'll come back to them, because I'm covering The Conjuring. So I just wanted to throw out a disclaimer before I get going on mine. I don't do scary movies. Thus, I'm speaking merely based off of research and not from personal experience of seeing any of these films. I don't do thrillers. I don't do horror. I don't do any of that. I debated on watching these before we recorded this, but I also really enjoy sleep, so that was a no for me.
Right.
I have a very photographic memory. And I'll tell you when I really stopped watching scary movies was after the first Jeepers Creepers came out. And for literal months after the fact, would have nightmares of the scene where the Jeepers Creepers dude was like holding a severed head, eating the tongue out of its head, and it was just stringing between the two of them.
Yeah.
That's all I could see for months. So that's not a thing for me. I will say though, TJ and I did go see. I made him take me to go see a movie in theaters, and I did go see like the paranormal movies in theaters, like one or two of them.
Yeah.
But what did I see? What did me and TJ go see? Sinister. We would go see Sinister when it was in theaters. So that was like back in 2012. So that tells you how long it's been.
Yeah.
I don't do them. I do not do them. My oldest, on the other hand, will watch all of them and loves it.
Yeah.
Gemma literally just looked at him the other day and was like, "Can we watch Child's Play this weekend?" I've never even watched those. I've never watched Chucky. I've never watched Nightmare on Elm Street. I've never watched Friday 13th. I don't even know that I've watched Scream.
Ooh, Scream's good.
I've never watched any of them. Now,
we lived at very different lives.
What's that movie? Skeleton Key? It's not really a horror movie. It's kind of suspenseful. It's got...
I feel like you might like The Others.
That's what I was about to say. I think, does that have Nicole Kidman in it? I have watched that.
Yeah. Because it's not so much
that one messed with me a little bit,
but it's a thriller.
Yeah, it messed with me a little bit. The Skeleton Key, I absolutely love that movie, and I will watch it every time it comes on. It messed with my mom. That one upset my mom.
Yeah.
For whatever reason. But now
the only one that's ever bothered me was the original Pet Sematary. That movie scared me.
I've watched those. That one doesn't bother. I feel like I tried to rewatch it a couple years ago and I couldn't do it because the acting was so terrible.
It's like it's got Herman Munster in it, but oh my god, she's got her Q-tip again.
Yeah, she brought it in here earlier.
But like the guy who dies at the beginning and then like starts talking to the guy, that freaks me out.
I think I watched that. I think me and Sam watched that when we were younger. That was probably one of those movies that my mama didn't know I watched and wouldn't have approved for me to watch. But I think me and Sam watched that. I haven't seen the new one.
Yeah, I haven't seen the new one either.
But I waited until just a couple of years ago to watch Lost Boys for the first time.
That was pretty good.
I love Lost Boys. But I will sit here and watch vampire and witch movies all freaking day long. I literally just finished watching a show called Discovery of Witches.
Yeah.
Fantastic. It's not scary by any stretch of the imagination. But it's like, oh my god, it's the best show. Anyway, back to it. Don't do scary movies, so this is all based off of what I could find.
Yeah.
So the first one I'm going to cover is Zodiac. If you know anything about true crime, you know about the Zodiac Killer. This 2007, the year that we graduated, thriller is...
We're old.
is David Fincher's way of showing the reenactment of the maze of crazy making puzzles coded messages that the Zodiac Killer fed San Francisco through the press. Let me read that again because that was weird. This 2007 thriller is David Fincher's way of showing the reenactment of the maze of crazy making puzzles and coded messages that the Zodiac Killer fed San Francisco through the press. While this film is less about the actual killing and more about the story, there are some pretty in-depth scenes that are apparently real detailed and a bit unnerving. While most movies have a happy ending, this movie sticks with the truth on the fact that the killer's identity has been unknown since it began in the 1960s. I read that this movie was praised as being one of the most historically accurate films based on real events, so I wanted to dive in and see if I could verify that information. Based on what I could find, it did depict the meeting between two characters, Robert Graysmith and Arthur Lee Allen, who was the main suspect, pretty accurately. Graysmith actually went to the hardware store that Allen worked at, was met in the parking lot by Allen as he pulled up and blocked Graysmith's driver's door. The two stared each other down. Also, the detail of the killer threatening school children was also true. The killer did indeed threaten to blow up a bus and shoot any survivors. Thankfully, that never happened. What did truly happen is that the Zodiac Killer did in fact call into a news show, which I found this crazy.
Mm-hmm.
He called into a news show, which was believed his attempt to stay in the spotlight. He tried his best to stay relevant, even by lying and saying that he was responsible for murders that the cops knew that he really didn't.
Yeah.
So in the movie, they show that the Zodiac Killer killed a taxi cab driver. And when one of the other characters arrives at a crime scene, he learns that a few officers had seen a civilian leaving the scene when they arrived.
Mm-hmm.
The officers had received an incorrect description of the shooter and didn't think anything of the man walking away. But eyewitness accounts of the shooter and the description from the officers were very similar, meaning that they had a chance to possibly stop and catch the killer then.
Womp womp.
Right. What did you just unplug?
My laptop.
Oh, I was like, are we still going?
No, it's touching my leg and it's overstimulating.
Oh, I got you. But there are some facts in the movie that, they did embellish on a little bit. In the movie, they did talk about Michael Magoo's eyewitness account. In real life, he did claim that it was Arthur Lee Allen who attacked him and his girlfriend, and that he narrowly survived. The movie implies that this is an important part of the case. But really and honestly, the dude himself said that there was no way that he could be certain that it was Allen because he barely saw the man's profile.
Mm.
So that really wasn't in real life a big deal. Robert Graysmith, which was the lead guy that was trying to figure out who the killer was.
Yeah.
He, for real, in real life, let this consume him so much that it killed his marriage.
Mm.
Like, he was obsessed, and his wife ended up being like, I'm out.
Yeah.
Hold on, sorry. So, in the second attack depicted in the film is of somebody, Cecilia Shepard and Brian Hartnell. And this took place on September 27th of 1969. The film shows the young couple cuddling by a lake when they're approached by a masked gunman who tied them up and stabbed them. And apparently only the guy survived. While the movie follows the boy's account of the attack closely, it's not it doesn't tell the whole story. The scene gives the impression that the two are a romantic couple, whereas really and honestly they were only friends.
Yeah, but that wouldn't have been interesting.
Well, this is true.
So,
hold on. There was something else that I wanted to point out. In the movie, and this was apparently like a big disturbing scene that made a big deal. I've read several accounts on it.
mm-hmm.
There was a scene that finds a woman and her baby who is given a ride by a stranger after being left on the highway. The man appears to be helpful, but soon threatens to kill them both before the woman escapes the car. This is based on a true incident, and not only did the woman claim that it was the Zodiac in the car, but the killer took credit for it in another letter. However, as time went by, the police began to have doubts about it, and they discovered that it wasn't truly the Zodiac killer. Even though the movie makes it seem, they make it seem like. But yeah, that's what I got for that one.
So Wes Craven's 1984 classic, A Nightmare on Elm Street, does not exactly scream based on a true story, but it is one of the most endearing horror movies ever made. Enduring, not endearing. If you haven't seen it, it is a movie about how a monster in your subconscious can use your dreams to manipulate and even murder you, and this proves to be a deadly thing for a group of teenagers, including Johnny Depp in his first role in a film. And there is a photo, if you're looking at my notes, there is a photo of him in his little scene. Just after directing Swamp Thing, Craven found himself unemployed and on the hunt for a fresh idea. One day, while reading the Los Angeles Times, he came upon an article that would spark his creative juices. In 2014, he said to Vulture magazine, "I'd read an article in the LA Times about a family who had escaped the killing fields in Cambodia and managed to get to the U.S. Things were fine, and then suddenly the young son was having very disturbing nightmares. He told his parents he was afraid if he slept, the thing chasing him would get him. So he tried to stay away for days at a time. When he finally fell asleep, his parents thought the crisis was over. Then they heard screams in the middle of the night, and by the time they got to him, he was dead. He died in the middle of a nightmare. He was a youngster having a vision of a horror that everyone older was denying. That became the central line of Nightmare on Elm Street. He had this real-life example of someone being plagued by nightmares that ended their life, and so he began to work on the script. But he still needed to come up with the memorable villain to truly dial up the terror. In Never Sleep Again, the making of A Nightmare on Elm Street, Craven said that he drew from a number of ideas to create Freddy Krueger. But he really drew from his own experiences from childhood. He said that he recalled a man walking down the street by his childhood home one night, and the man somehow knew that Craven had been watching him and turned to meet his eyes with a frightening and creepy look. The man was wearing a battered-looking fedora, which was an accessory passed on to the Krueger character. And that was it for that.
Well,
simple, short, and sweet.
So the next one I have is The Conjuring.
Her little Q-tip is wet.
This movie brought even more fame to an already fairly well-known paranormal investigators. These two are Brittany's favorite, Ed and Lorraine Warren. This film was directly inspired by their accounts of an investigation at an old rundown farmhouse in Rhode Island. This movie, however, follows the story of the Perrin family who moved into this home in 1971 and quickly realized that they were not there alone. The demonic witch Bathsheba Sherman who is at the center of the movie, is only loosely based on a real person. Bathsheba Sherman, the reputed 19th century witch whose malevolent spirit torments the movie family until a climactic battle during an exorcism, is more prominent in the movie, which portrays her as having sacrificed her infant son and then hanging herself from a tree, much to her husband's horror. It is the spirit of Bathsheba that causes all the mayhem in the movie. The real-life Bathsheba Sherman did not die by suicide after sacrificing her son. She died in Burrillville in 1885 at the age of 73, with her son, Herbert Leander Sherman, living another 18 years into his 50s. The exorcism didn't even really happen at all, but something similar did. Mm-hmm. The basement exorcism scene didn't actually happen, though Perrin describes a similar scene in her books. A seance, not an exorcism, was held in a first floor room next to Roger and Carolyn Perrin's bedroom. According to her book, Perrin was levitated during the seance and thrown into an adjoining room. I can't spell. That's what I'm over here struggling with. Hold on. So when the movie premiered, someone saw Lorraine Warren, who, with her husband Ed, are the main characters in the movie and its 2 sequels. Now deceased, they are among the best-known paranormal investigators in the late 20th century. Ed, a self-described demonologist, and Lorraine, a clairvoyant and medium. Ed and Lorraine, the real-life married couple from Monroe, Connecticut, who are the protagonists of The Conjuring and its sequels, were not the central figures in the movie. Hold on. Honestly, what happened, though, when they went out to investigate, Roger Perrin threw them out.
Oh. I don't blame him.
The house in the movie is not the real-life house.
Yeah.
The farmhouse was built in the 1730s with parts of it having a second floor. The house shown in the movie is actually located in North Carolina and has 3 floors, lots of windows, and a 2-story column porch. The actual house is at 1677 Round Top Road, also known as State Route 96. It's a quarter mile from Massachusetts state line at Uxbridge. It's a 26.2 mile drive from downtown Providence and 60 miles from Boston. So the house is now owned. I'm sorry, I had to burp. The house is now owned by real estate developer Jacqueline Nunez. And she's owned it since May of 2022. So fairly recently. She bought it from Jen and Corey Heinzen, who bought it 3 years earlier as their home, but also opened it to paranormal investigators who paid to stay overnight in the house. I'd be making that bank too.
Yeah, I don't blame
For
him.
sure. From the time that the parents sold the house in the 1980s in 1980 until the Heinzens bought it, it was a private home, a home daycare. Let me put my kid in this house that's haunted as shit. Even operated there, or a home daycare was even operated there with no reported malevolent paranormal activity. After the movie came out in 2013, the place became haunted by trespassers who sought out the newly famous house. So today, if you make reservations ahead of time, you can go visit it. There are brief tours, overnight stays, and camping in the summer and special events. But those that are just wanting to show up will feel more than just a few spirits telling them to get lost. The house does have a security system, including 32 cameras in and around the house with facial recognition and license plate recording software. And the building is staffed around the clock 7 days a week. But booking a $25 tour opens the ground and house to visitors who can take plenty of pictures. So don't be cheap. Treat yourself. Spend the $25.
Right.
It's not that expensive.
No, that's really not that bad.
You can have experiences that range from 13-hour overnight self-led investigation, which costs almost $1,300 for up to 8 people on the weekends. Or it can go to a 1-hour house tour, which costs $25 for those 13 and older, and $20 for those 7 to 12. With no one younger than 7 allowed, which I get.
Yeah, I do get that.
Anyway, that's all I got on that one.
All right. Well, next is the first of my string of Alfred Hitchcock films. The screenplay for the 1963 Alfred Hitchcock film The Birds was...
Hey, let me just add that I have watched this movie. And Psycho.
Nice. I didn't put Psycho in here.
I almost did it. That's the one where he's like... mother,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I think I've watched Misery, too.
Misery's a Stephen King film.
I know, but I think I've watched it.
Yeah.
I'm just sitting here trying to think of ones
Misery
that maybe I
is
have watched.
more of a kind of like a psychological
Has
thriller.
Kathy Bates in it?
Yeah.
Okay.
But the only part of that movie that makes me go, ooh, is when she hobbles him.
Oh, yeah. Well, that makes me want to gag just thinking about it.
So anyway, the screenplay for the 1963 Alfred Hitchcock film The Birds was written by Evan Hunter and based on both the 1952 horror story of the same name by Daphne du Maurier, It's probably French, which we know how well I pronounce French. And a real bird attack in 1961.
This is why my sister doesn't like birds, by the way.
So published in Du Maurier's, that's okay. Her collection entitled The Apple Tree, a short novel and several long stories, which I love that title. The story sees a farmhand and his family viciously attacked by a flock of murderous birds. By the time readers get to the last page of the story, they learn that the attack isn't isolated to this one farmhouse. While there are some details that differ between the film and the book, you can see the framework of the story there. And then the stars aligned and gave Hitchcock and his crew some added inspiration for their horror film. In the August 18th, 1961 issue of the Santa Cruz Sentinel, there was the headline, "Seabird Invasion Hits Coastal Homes," and a story written by Wally Trebing. The article tells of what seems to be a coordinated attack by thousands of sooty shearwaters, which are a type of seabird, on two coastal towns in the early morning hours that day, which I put in my notes a photo of that type of bird. Trebing wrote, residents, especially in the Pleasure Point and Capitola area, were awakened about 3 a.m. today by the rain of birds slamming against their homes. Dead and stunned birds littered the streets and roads in the foggy early dawn. Startled by the invasion, residents rushed out to their lawns with flashlights, then rushed back inside as the birds flew toward their light. Allegedly, the newspaper had received a call from Hitchcock himself requesting a copy of the issue with the story. And 2 years later, the birds hit theaters and was set in the town of Bodega Bay, which was less than 150 miles up the coast from where the actual bird attack occurred. At the time, there was some speculation as to the cause of the birds flying straight into homes, cars, homes, and people. And some wondered whether the fog was so dense that they were simply lost and unable to gain their bearings. But seabirds are very familiar with flying with poor visibility. Some reported that there were birds that were heavy with sardines and were regurgitating blood. The fact that the birds were sick was not investigated for decades. And it wasn't until 2010 that two scientists found toxic algae in regions of the open ocean. These algal blooms included a diatom called Pseudo-Nichisia. I'm not a scientist, so I'm not 100% sure, but it produces a neurotoxin called domoic acid. And this toxin is usually found in coastal areas and can easily make its way up the food chain. The most likely way that it is introduced to the food chain is via krill. When there is enough of the toxin gathered, it can produce a lot of DA, and then it gets eaten by plankton or krill, who then get eaten by small fish, who are then eaten by bigger fish, who are then eaten by seals or birds. And by the time the toxin gets that far into the food chain, the concentrations can be high enough to be deadly to unsuspecting predators. In birds and mammals, DA causes confusion and disorientation, and in severe cases, seizures, coma, and death. Testing of phytoplankton near Pleasure Point and Capitola from around that time period were swimming in DA. But why doesn't this happen all the time then, and why was it described as an attack? We may never know for sure, but it seems that it was just because of the type of animal and how it was affected by the DA. The sooty shearwater are medium-sized seabirds and they look like dirty seagulls. They embark on a yearly migration that is tens of thousands of miles long, and it is estimated that up to 1 million of them visit each year, and their flocks are so large that they look like clouds of smoke on the horizon.
That's terrifying.
Right. Because these thousands of birds ate together, flew together, and lived together, they also died together. Being totally unaware that the food they were consuming was poisonous to them, they happily gorged themselves to prepare for the next leg of their journey. The poison sufficiently consumed, they took to the air and then became confused, disoriented, and ill. In this, they did what they had always done, stuck together right until the end. It's kind of sad.
That is. So the next one I've got is Open Water. Tom and Eileen Lonergan went out to explore the Great Barrier Reef on a scuba adventure. When they were done, they realized quickly that the tour boat they came out there on had left them there. Their bodies were never found. While you may think that doesn't seem like a great movie idea, this movie was actually filmed in the ocean where this happened with real life sharks. As much as I love the beach, I'm terrified of sharks, and I feel like this movie would serve me nightmares for like ever. So hold on. I'm going back and forth between two different things here. Open Water does embellish some details, since exactly what happened to the Lonergans still isn't known. The Open Water movie's most frightening moments are derived from the presence of multiple numbers of sharks that Susan and Daniel are powerless to fend off. Eventually, he gets bitten, and at some point during the night, he dies either of blood loss or shock. She releases Daniel and watches his body get ravaged by the predators. Realizing she's going to die, she removes her gear and sinks beneath the surface. However, while it's possible that Tom, which I'm saying Susan and Daniel, because that's the characters in the movie.
Mm-hmm. She is still on one with that.
Oh, yeah. While it's possible that the two met their end at the hands of multiple sharks, the true open water story is actually part of a mystery. It's also based on a novel. The 2006 sequel, Open Water 2, Adrift, is an adaptation of a short story. So this is kind of like a twofer.
Yeah.
The story isn't at all connected with the disappearance of Tom and Eileen. Since the second Open Water movie was marketed, the tagline "based on true events," many viewers believed it was also derived from a real-life case of shark attack like the first Open Water. The short story that inspired Open Water 2 is entirely fictional, though. So, that's what I got. I only have two more stories.
How many do I have left? I have 3.
Yeah, sorry, I think you have 3. I did one less than you.
Hold on, let me drop back down. I think I could write an entire episode just about Alfred Hitchcock films, honestly, but I'll stop at 2, maybe 3. Another Hitchcock film that is loosely based on a true story is Shadow of a Doubt from 1943, and this one is one of my personal favorites.
I've literally never heard of this one.
Exactly. This is one of my personal favorites aside from Rebecca. Rebecca is my favorite.
Never heard of that one.
All of Hitchcock's films, this one is one of my favorites. In the film, we have Mr. Charles Oakley, played by Joseph Cotton. And he is coming to visit his sister and her family in Santa Rosa, California. Mr. Oakley's family is thrilled to see him and just know that he is going to add some excitement to their otherwise uneventful lives. He shares a deep bond with his niece Charlie, who is named after him. But what nobody suspects is that good old Uncle Charlie is also the merry widow murderer. He has a habit of strangling old rich widows. And news of the crimes is all over the newspaper and hold on, words are hard. News of the crimes is all over the newspapers, and unbeknownst to everyone, Uncle Charlie is being watched closely by the police as the suspect. The film received an Academy Award nomination for Best Writing Original Story for Gordon MacDonald. This story was told to Alfred Hitchcock in May of 1942 and was loosely based on the true story of Earl Leonard Nelson, who was a mass murderer in the 1920s and was known as the Gorilla Man. Joseph Cotton portrays Uncle Charlie as a suave, charming, but menacing man who possesses an impressive intellect and an upper crust demeanor. However, the real-life murderer had absolutely none of these qualities. Earl Leonard Nelson was born in Philadelphia in 1897, and he had run-ins with the law beginning at age 18 with a breaking and entering charge. It is believed that a violent collision with a streetcar when he was 10 years old caused him to suffer from delusions and act out in violent ways for the rest of his life. Nelson was in and out of mental institutions until 1925, and each stint was followed by increasingly violent behavior, and some believe that he murdered 3 women in Newark, New Jersey in late 1925, but his first confirmed murder was in San Francisco in February of 1926. There was a woman in her 60s who had been found strangled to death in her home. For the next year and a half, Nelson traveled across the U.S. and Canada, killing at least 22 people, with all but 2 of them being landladies that he had found as a result of searching for room for rent signs as he went on his way. His murders were brutal and personal, and he was prone to raping, bludgeoning, and strangling his victims, who were primarily widows or spinsters who had thought that they had taken in a mild-mannered boarder. He would impress them with his manners, smile, and the Bible that he carried with him. Nelson was captured and stood trial in Canada for 2 murders in Winnipeg. He was found guilty in November of 1927, and on January 13th, 1928, the then only 30 years old Earl Nelson was hanged to death at the gallows in Winnipeg. That's a really good movie, though. Shadow of a Doubt.
The next one I have is 1998 movie Dead Ringers. Now, I read like a brief description of this before I started on it. It's about the story of 2 twins who were gynecologists and got addicted to drugs. And I thought that sounds like a great stoner movie, but apparently that's not the case.
Yeah.
So it tells the tale of impossibly good-looking identical twins, Elliot and Beverly Mantle, both played by the same person in the movie, Jeremy Irons. The beautiful yet nefarious duo, who both work as gynecologists, have a penchant for trading places while seducing women. Their lives spiral out of control due to both decadence and extensive drug usage. The movie traces the pair's descent into madness as each twin's sense of self dissipates. They begin a psychotic experiment to create ghastly medical tools for operating on mutant women. The gruesome film concludes in a bloody double suicide with Beverly consensually disemboweling Elliot, fleeing, and returning shortly thereafter to die in his brother's arms. The film is based on the novel Twins by Barry Wood, which in turn is based on the real-life story of Stuart and Cyril Marcus, an actual pair of identical twin gynecologists who perished together in July of 1975. The Marcus brothers both worked on the staff of New York Hospital and Cornell University Medical College. The 2 had edited a textbook on obstetrics. Yeah, that word. And gynecology, and co-wrote several articles about infertility. The strange circumstances of their deaths were covered by Ron Rosenbaum in his collection of essays, The Secret Parts of Fortune. On July 17th of 1975, the brothers were found dead by a handyman in their Manhattan apartment, both from what at first appeared to be a I don't know why I put that. Basically drug withdrawal.
Barbiturate?
Yep. Later toxicology reports on the subject omitted this detail as it was perhaps made in error. It's unclear when or how exactly the brothers passed away. Rosenbaum's essay states that it was likely Stewart that it was likely they died between July 10th and July 14th of a drug overdose. Cyril died, or the one brother, Stewart, died between July 10th and 14th of a drug overdose. Cyril died of unspecified causes between the 14th and 17th.
Ooh, so he was like hanging out for like 3 days?
Yeah. A Time Out New York article covering the deaths at the time noted that the brothers shared nearly everything: a thriving practice, teaching appointments at New York Hospital, a house in the Hamptons, and a debilitating addiction. We cannot tell if they had wanted to stop or simply had no strength to go and get more drugs, the medical examiner's office said to Time Out New York of their demise. The pair's death shocked the medical community at the time and prompted the creation of warnings about reporting doctors who may be working under the influence, which is what New York Times said. And they also noted that the two had performed several operations while under the influence of drugs. In the film, prior to their deaths, co-workers had previously observed the twins' incredible connection with each other and described the two as geniuses, if not a bit peculiar. Questions about the sexualities of the doctors remain, which I find to be neither here nor there.
Right. I really feel like that doesn't matter.
Right. In real life, though, Cyril was divorced and had 2 daughters. Stewart never married. Despite the iconic imagery, Cronenberg's mutant women subplot appears to be entirely fictional, though. The vague commentary about how he came to choose the story of the Marcus brothers as the subject of this film offers little insight of what inspired him about their tragic tale. When was the last time a gynecologist was in a movie, even as a figure of fun? He told Criterion Collection in 1998. There's something taboo there, something strange and difficult. Dead Ringers is a conceptual science fiction. The concept being, what if there could be identical twins? I'm suggesting that's impossible. I can imagine a world in which they are only a concept, like mermaids. Cronenberg's take on the Marcus Brothers story was met with mixed reviews at the time of its debut in 1988, but since received a critical reevaluation, marking it as an underappreciated yet completely nightmarish classic. Watching it is like slowing down to look at a traffic accident, afraid you might see something, wrote Washington Post critic Rita Kempley shortly after the film's release. It's really sordid stuff that becomes ridiculous, painful, unbelievable, and tedious when the mantles hit bottom, sharing needles and putting their faces in a sponge cake like their squalid offices. While the tortured psychologies of the Marcus brothers may never be truly known, Dead Ringers provides at least one hideous fantasy about what may have led to their deaths. So basically, that movie was inspired by these 2 drug-addicted gynecologists who really weren't doing much of anything.
Yeah. Well, the 1948 Alfred Hitchcock, yes, another one, film Rope starred, and this is probably also one you've never heard of, starred Jimmy Stewart, John Dahl, and Farley Granger. The entire premise of the film is 2 murderers kill one of their former classmates, and to convince themselves that they have committed the perfect murder, they host a dinner party. Now, personally, I think this movie is kind of funny, but maybe not everybody does. So at the time of its release, Hitchcock was experimenting with Technicolor, and he was less than thrilled with the film, as were audiences. He would later recall that this film was an experiment that didn't work out. After Rope stopped showing in theaters, Hitchcock kept it and several other films from release for about 3 decades. And it wasn't until the 1980s when the 5 lost Hitchcocks, Rope, Rear Window. Can you imagine Rear Window never seeing the light of day again? I love Rear Window.
I've never heard of that one.
The Trouble with Harry, Vertigo, and The Man Who Knew Too Much were all re-released.
Do you have a movie poster of Rope in the living room?
No, I don't, but I do have that movie.
Okay, maybe that's where I've seen it.
All of which garnered admiration for their experimentation. I personally feel like the film, due to the seemingly unintentional dark humor aspect, and it feels as though I'm watching a play in a theater rather than a film. It is also worth noting that while it is never mentioned, it is quite clear that the 2 male murderers in the film are a couple. but the film was banned in many places due to its homosexual subtext. The opening of the film shows a beautiful street scene from high up, and viewers are treated to the director's signature cameo, and then the camera pans toward windows of a building, and in one of the windows there is a man being strangled. After the man dies, the camera pans out, and we see the main characters, Philip and Brandon, getting ready to place the body in a trunk that is in the living room of their apartment. They come up with the brilliant idea that they should have a dinner party and use the trunk as a buffet table.
Okay.
And then invite the friend's father to dinner just a few minutes later. The story for this film was loosely based on the crimes of Richard Loeb and Nathan Leopold in 1923. The two boys had grown up in the same neighborhood on the south side of Chicago, and while both young men had grown up in wealthy families and were intelligent, there are similarities in there. Loeb was the more social and handsome of the two, while Leopold tended to be more reclusive. It could have been the old adage of opposites attracting that brought these two together and ultimately led to their being intimate partners, but it was most likely that Leopold's attraction to Loeb was used to indulge him in his misdeeds. When Loeb began to mention his desire to commit the perfect crime, Leopold was all in, like they were planning a craft night. Loeb got a kick out of committing murder or committing crimes, while Leopold would brag about his accomplishments, whether they were real or not. He would do this to the point that he believed he was like Superman, and as a result, he felt that laws and standard moral codes did not apply to him or Loeb. Leopold believed that if it gave him pleasure, then he had the right to do it, even committing murder, so it wasn't a shock when Loeb came up with his plan to commit the perfect crime, which was to kidnap and murder a child. The two discussed the crime and planned its execution for hours, which included demanding a ransom from the child's wealthy parents. The two were driven by the thrill of the criminal acts they performed, not necessarily by the murder. That part just so happened to be a part of what they perceived as a necessary part of getting away with the supposed perfect crime. During the afternoon of May 21st, 1924, Leopold and Loeb walked around the neighborhood in the south side of Chicago searching for their victim when they spotted Bobby Franks, an acquaintance of both of them. He was a cute little kid. Mm-hmm. Then they lured Franks into the car they had rented and then proceeded to brutally murder the boy with a chisel. They then stuffed Bobby's body in a drainage tube at a marshland and took extra steps to ensure the identification would be difficult. They then contacted the Franks family and set up the plan for the $10,000 ransom to be dropped off. However, before that could come to fruition, the police discovered the body of Bobby Franks, making the perfect crime spoiled. At the dump site, police found Leopold's glasses and were able to link him to the crime. The two would confess to the murder but would maintain a creepy, superior disposition throughout the investigation and subsequent trial. Okay. Which, if I've got a photo of like the glasses and then the two of them at trial, they look like they think they're going to get away with it.
Right.
It was never denied that this was a murder committed simply for the thrill of it. Their defense attorney, Clarence Darrow, was the only thing that saved them from being sentenced to death. However, Richard Loeb's life would end in a prison fight anyway. Nathan Leopold was released in 1958 after 34 years in prison. He admitted to having an undying love for Richard for the rest of his life. And fun fact about this film, though, Jimmy Stewart said that this was the only movie he made with Hitchcock that he did not like. He would later say that he felt he was miscast as the professor. He didn't make his first appearance until 28 minutes into the film. And also during the filming of this movie, there would be long filming times, and so everybody on set would do their best to avoid any mistakes. And at one point, during the first take of a scene, the camera dolly accidentally ran over the camera operator's foot and broke it. But in order to keep filming, he was gagged and then dragged off of the soundstage. Another time during filming, a woman put her glass down, but she missed the table. A stagehand rushed to grab it before the glass hit the ground, and both of those takes from those scenes were used in the final cut of the film. For the theatrical release trailer, there was footage that was shot specifically for the advertisement that takes place prior to the beginning of the movie. And the victim, David, sits on a park bench and speaks with Janet before leaving to meet his friends, Brandon and Philip. The sequence is narrated by Jimmy Stewart, and he notes that this is the last time that Janet or the audience will see David alive.
Well.
So
all right.
Finally got comfortable.
So my last one is movie made or released in 2007. Again, Borderlands. And I've never seen this one, but reading into it, I like it because like the story is like true. It seems like in the late 1980s, the Mexican border state of Tamaulipas was terrorized by a group of so-called narco-Satanists, which was a clan of drug-dealing occultists who practiced ritual human sacrifice as a means of assisting their associated cartel. This effectively freaky indie horror flick dramatizes the events surrounding the cult's most widely publicized crime, the abduction and subsequent murder of a University of Texas medical student in 1989. While the film embellishes the details, a lot of it is more factual than you might think, which is horrifying. So it's based loosely off the true story of a religious cult led by Adolfo de Jesus Constanzo. Hold on, I'm trying to. The cult members, also known as narco-Satanists, were responsible for the abduction and murder of Mark Kilroy, who was the Texas pre-med student. He went missing during spring break. But the arrest that led to the discovery of the cult, one of the drug couriers and member of the cult was arrested while transporting drugs across the border in broad daylight, and the suspect believed he was invisible because the cult's human sacrifices. But that's all I got.
All right.
I kind of feel like I might want to watch that one, though.
Yeah.
That's really, I've already said it. That's really fucked up of me, though. I'm like, I don't want to watch, scary movies like some of these that you've mentioned.
Yeah.
But I'm going to watch this one about human sacrifice shit.
Well, I think like Hitchcock films you'd probably be fine with.
Yeah, I was okay with like The Birds and Psycho.
I think, honestly, though, I think Scream you would be fine with, too. I don't know that, I don't think
I feel like the majority of my life I have spent thinking that Scream was more satire than anything.
Yeah.
Is that accurate?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay.
And I think
it's because of like
Scary Movie.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. Scary Movie made movies like that, like the 90s teen slasher films. They made them less scary to us. I think. And it's not.
Maybe in my head I'm getting confused. Scary Movie and Scream. I forgot Scary Movie was a thing, to be honest.
Well, like I think too, this movie it's not gore.
Was Neve Campbell in Scary Movie?
No, I don't think so.
I don't know. Anyway.
So one summary on IMDb reads, a year after her mother's death, Sydney Prescott, played by Neve Campbell, and her friends start experiencing some strange phone calls. They later learned the calls were coming from a crazed serial killer in a white face mask and a large black robe, looking for revenge. His phone calls usually consist of many questions, the main one being, what's your favorite scary movie? Along with much Scary Movie trivia ending with bloody pieces of innocent lives scattered around the small town of Woodsboro. Wes Craven's Scream has been widely regarded as one of the greatest horror films of all time, and the movie set the foundation for a wildly successful horror franchise. By the late 90s, the slasher film genre was dead, but Scream single-handedly breathed fresh air back into the genre for a whole new generation. This film isn't meant to be overly scary, and it isn't usually seen as one of the scariest movies ever made, but the tone isn't as dark as, say, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. This film will make you jump, but then make you laugh. Though Scream aims to be a little bit fun, the backstory that screenwriter Kevin Williamson used to write his most famous creation is not at all fun and lighthearted. Williamson was inspired to write this film after watching a show about one of America's most heinous serial killers, the Gainesville Ripper. While he might not be as notorious as Dahmer, Gacy, or Bundy, David Rowling was just as disturbed as they were. In August of 1990, Rowling went on a 4-day murder spree that would ultimately result in the deaths of 5 Florida college students. 4 years after the crimes, an aspiring screenwriter was watching the ABC show Turning Point about the Gainesville Ripper's crimes, and which left him feeling so chilled that it inspired him to write a screenplay that would go on to become Scream. The Gainesville Ripper wasn't a teenager, and he didn't call his victims or wear a mask, but he planted the seeds of fear in Williamson's mind and created a feeling that he wanted to recreate on paper. On Friday, August 24th, 1990, Daniel Rowling broke into a Florida apartment in the middle of the night where 2 young college students were sleeping. He found Christina Powell asleep on the couch. He watched her for a time but did not do anything, instead choosing to move upstairs where he found Sonia Larson asleep in her bed. He woke her up, taped her mouth shut so that Christina would not hear, and then stabbed her to death. He then moved back downstairs where he sexually assaulted Powell and then killed her as well. He posed their bodies for the police to find and then took a shower in their bathroom before he left. The following night, on the 25th, he entered the home of Krista Hoyt. She wasn't home at the time, so he patiently waited for her to return in the morning. When she arrived, he bound her and sexually assaulted her and then stabbed her to death. He posed her body as well, but went a step further, and for shock value, he decapitated her and left her head on a shelf. Once the crimes were discovered, citizens were left in a total state of shock, with many being reminded of the crimes of Ted Bundy in Florida in 1978, when he killed several Florida college students. That said, though, Rowling wasn't done, and just 2 days later, on Monday, he broke into another apartment. First, he went to the bedroom of Manny Taboda, where he murdered him. Manny's roommate, Tracy Pauls, heard him trying to fight back from another room and went to the bedroom where she was also attacked. She briefly got away and ran to her bedroom and locked the door, but Rowling broke through and stabbed her to death. Just as with his other female victims, he posed Pauls but did nothing with Taboda. This showed that he must have intended for all of his victims to be female, and he wasn't anticipating Taboda to be there. Following this, Rowling became inactive for several months, and he would have stayed that way for the rest of his life, but his past would ultimately be his downfall. It turned out that the 5 college students were not his first victims, and he had killed before in 1989. Not even 6 months prior, on November 4th, 1989, Rowling murdered a family of 3 in Shreveport, Louisiana. He had broken into the family's home and killed the grandfather, Tom Grissom, his adult daughter, Julie, and her son, Sean. As with the crime with Taboda and Pauls, he left the male bodies untouched, but posed to Julie Grissom for whoever would find her. Investigators were able to spot the similarities between the 2 murder sprees and believed that the same person was responsible for both, but this didn't tell them who the perpetrator was, but they did have a sample of the killer's blood from the Shreveport scene and knew that he had type B blood. There were no other clues as to who the killer might be, but then Rowling made a mistake. He couldn't shut up. While in Shreveport, a couple named Cindy Jurasich and Steve Dobbin had befriended Rowling at their church. They even invited him to their home on several occasions, but quickly discovered that their new friend had a troubled mind that they needed to get away from. In an ABC News interview in 2021, Jurasich told her friendship with Rowling. He'd come over every night for a while, and then one night Stephen came in and he goes, "He's got to go." Dobbin said that Rowling told him that he had a problem, and when Dobbin asked him to clarify what he meant, Rowling had told him that he likes to stick knives into people. By this time, the Shreveport murders had already occurred, but Jurisic dismissed his comments. But once the news went nationwide and investigators suspected that both crimes were committed by the same man, the Florida location made her remember something else about Rowling that she couldn't let go of. He always told us, one day I'm going to leave this town and I'm going to go where the girls are beautiful and I can lay in the sun and watch beautiful women all day. She said that she called Crime Stoppers and told them that she thought they needed to investigate Danny Rowling. Not only did her call come in time to save other potential victims, it also pointed the finger at someone else other than the suspect police had in custody at the time. A Florida man named Edward Lewis Humphrey had been arrested for beating his grandmother, but was being looked at as the number one suspect in the Gainesville murders. Though he was cleared, many believed that he was an accomplice of Rowling's. It didn't take much effort to find Rowling, as he was sitting in a jail in Ocala, Florida, where he had been since he robbed a grocery store some months earlier, just a week and a half after the last murders. And that explains why the murders had stopped. There was a bank robbed on the same day as another murder as well, and with this connection, investigators began to thoroughly look over the evidence, including tape and tools from the robbery, and discovered that they matched what had been used in the killings. Not just that, but Rowling had type B blood, and in another sloppy move, he had talked about his crimes in a diary of his that investigators found. He was arrested and put on trial, and it was discovered that Rowling had suffered severe and constant abuse from his father, which may have helped to explain his mental state, but that ultimately would not save him. Daniel Rowling was found guilty of his crimes and sentenced to death, and on October 25th, 2006, he was executed. In 1994, the trial was underway and ABC aired a show about it, and Kevin Williamson was watching while house sitting. While the screenplay may not have been about the Gainesville Ripper specifically, it had been about the fear that Williamson felt that night as he watched the story unfold. Williamson would later say, "I was watching this Barbara Walters special on the Gainesville murders, and I was getting so spooked. I was being scared out of my mind. During the commercial break, I heard a noise, and I had to go search the house, and I called a buddy of mine. I went to bed that night so spooked I was having nightmares, and I woke up at like 3 or 4 in the morning, and I started writing the opening scene to Scream." And that, ladies and gentlemen, and ladies, if that is your preference, is how the scene that killed Drew Barrymore in such a gruesomely iconic way was written. He was absolutely terrified. And he heard a noise.
All right.
Well, I've got the nonprofit, and I chose FILMMAKERS Without Borders. It is an educational nonprofit organization that is dedicated to empowering the next generation of digital storytellers. Through various grants, educational resources, and international fellowships, FWB provides youth from underserved communities with the technical training, media literacy skills, and digital tools to leverage the creative process as a means for interpreting their role in society. And I couldn't find a specific place to donate, as it appears that they are primarily funded through grant programs, but there is a contact form on their website should you want to reach out and try to make a donation.
I like it. I like it. Well, ladies and gents and thadies. I've never heard that before.
Ladies and thadies.
Yeah. Never heard that. I like it. That's it. That's all she wrote, folks. I hope you enjoyed.
Yeah.
So while you're at it, stop everything that you're doing. If you're driving, pull over in a safe spot. And make sure
to take your shirt off and rub your nipples. But before you do that.
That turned. No, they can wait till after they're done. After they've finished.
Yeah, after you finish doing that.
You can, take a second, deep breath, and cast that social media circle. And follow us on the Facebook,
Instagram,
the TikTok,
X,
email us at wanderersofweird@gmail.com.
I need a headphone warning.
No, I started this one without one. We're going to finish it the same. All right. We hope you come out next week for the continuation of our spooky season stories.
Yeah. Next week is our 100th episode.
It sure is.
So, looking forward to that.
It sure is.
All right, bye.
Okay, bye.